Now as we look at fuel trim, we know we use short-term and long-term, and there's a 10% acceptable level of adjustment, either 10% positive or 10% negative. 10% positive is adding fuel, 10% negative is taking it away. That's acceptable. Now whenever you're looking at short-term, you should always look at long-term. And here's why. Now I want to use a ratcheting torque wrench to make this illustration. Let's say that I have my ratcheting torque wrench set at 1 foot-pound, and I put it on a bolt that has a lot of threads on it. And I try to tighten this bolt, and I turn it 6 times, and the bolt is snug. Now if I change that from 6 turns to 6% adjustment, I've only got a 6% adjustment with a 10% acceptable level. That means there would be no check engine light. That means the computer is handling it and adjusting fuel properly, and everything's acceptable. But if I have to go past 10 turns and my bolt is still not tight, if this were short term, I would have exceeded the 10% level. Now long term would kick in. So it'd be like if I had to take my ratchet off and change it from 1 foot-pound to 2 foot-pounds, or let's say even say 3 foot-pounds. I put it back on the bolt and I try to tighten my bolt. If it tightens down snug, that means my long term is at 3%. So at 3 foot-pounds, I'm able to get my bolt tight, or 3% adjustment. Long term, I'm not going to set a check engine light because air-fuel mixture combined, short term and long term not exceeding 10%, it's not going to set a check engine light. Now, let's go to the other extreme. Let's say that I have my bolt on, it's still loose. I take my torque wrench off, and I have to go up to 18 foot-pounds, put it back on the bolt, and I'm still not able to snug my bolt down. So I take my torque wrench off, and I go to 25 foot-pounds. I put it back on the bolt, and now at 25 foot-pounds, I'm able to get my bolt tight. That means the long term had to go to 25 foot-pounds, or a 25% adjustment. The short term then was able to keep it in air-fuel balance, so I would definitely set a check engine light, and this is a bad problem. I had to go to a 25% adjustment on long term before I could get fuel under control, or before I could get my bolt snugged up. So if you're only looking at short term, you could be deceived, because I might be at 25% long term, but my short term may have, at 25 foot-pounds, may have only taken 3 turns to snug the bolt. So my short term might only be reading 3%. And if I looked at only short term, I might say, well, 3%, that's well below the 10% acceptable level, so that's good. But that's where I need to look at long term as well, because short term is not enough. If it can't do it, it goes to long term, and we're looking for a combined no more than a 10% acceptable level. Short term won't set a check engine light. Long term will, if it cannot maintain the air-fuel balance at an acceptable 10% plus or minus level.